The unlikely meeting. The warriors' doubt. Colonel Marcus Kane adjusted his uniform one last time before entering the negotiation chamber. The neutral space station hummed with activity, housing diplomats from 12 different species, but none quite as intimidating as the Kralith delegation waiting inside. He'd studied their files obsessively, 8-foot-tall warriors with natural armor plating, for arms that could crush steel, and a culture built entirely around combat prowess. What he hadn't expected was the nervous energy radiating from their leader. First impressions. Colonel Kane, I presume? The Kralith warrior's voice rumbled like distant thunder through his translation device. His name was Jaxer, and despite his fearsome appearance, something in his posture suggested uncertainty. That would be me, Marcus replied, offering a casual salute that made 3 Kralith guards tense visibly. Though I have to ask, why do you all look like you've seen a ghost? Jaxer's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture Marcus had learned indicated confusion. Ghost? We do not understand this reference. It means you look scared, Marcus clarified, settling into his chair with the kind of relaxed confidence that came from years of military service. Which is interesting, considering you're supposed to be the most feared warriors in the galaxy. The legend speaks. The silence that followed was pregnant with tension. Jaxer's translator worked overtime as he processed the human's words. Colonel Kane, surely you jest. Our intelligence reports indicate that your species. He paused, searching for the right words. Your species does not fear death itself. Marcus blinked, then burst out laughing. The sound echoed through the chamber like gunfire, making every Kralith in the room flinch. Is that what this is about? You think we're all suicidal maniacs? Are you not? Jaxer leaned forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over the table. Our scouts report that human soldiers charge directly into plasma fire while laughing. They throw themselves on explosive devices to save their companions. They fight wounded enemies with their bare hands when their weapons fail. Well, when you put it like that. Marcus scratched his chin thoughtfully. I suppose it does sound pretty crazy. The truth behind the fear. Jaxer's mandibles clicked in what Marcus was beginning to recognize as agitation. Colonel, my people have conquered 17 star systems. We have crushed the Vorthan Empire, scattered the Zalani Confederacy, and made the Quantum Collective surrender without firing a shot. Yet every simulation we run against human forces ends in mutual destruction. Mutual destruction? Marcus raised an eyebrow. That's your definition of losing? It is when survival is impossible, Jaxer replied grimly. The Kralith are warriors, yes, but we are also pragmatists. We fight to win, to survive, to grow stronger. But humans. He gestured helplessly with all 4 arms. Humans fight like they have already accepted death. How does one defeat an enemy who considers victory and defeat equally acceptable outcomes? The moment of understanding. Marcus leaned back, a slow smile spreading across his face. You know what your problem is, Jaxer? You've been reading our combat reports, but you've missed the most important part. Which is? We don't fight because we don't fear death. We fight because we fear something worse than death, losing the people we care about. Marcus's expression grew serious. When a human soldier jumps on a grenade, he's not being suicidal. He's being incredibly selfish. He's choosing to live with the fact that his friends get to go home, rather than die with the knowledge that they won't. The Kralith delegation exchanged glances, their translator devices working frantically to process the concept. The unexpected question. This, caring, Jaxer said slowly. It makes you stronger in battle? It makes us human, Marcus replied. The question is, what makes you Kralith? Because from where I'm sitting, you look more afraid of us than we've ever been of you. Jaxer's natural armor plates shifted slightly, a sign of deep thought. We are bred for combat, trained from birth to be perfect warriors. But you. He studied Marcus with new interest. You create warriors from ordinary beings through something we do not understand. Love, Marcus said simply. We call it love. The challenge accepted. The chamber fell silent again, but this time it felt different. Less tense, more contemplative. Finally, Jaxer spoke. Colonel Kane, would you be willing to demonstrate this human way of fighting? Not in combat, but in training? My people need to understand what we face. Marcus grinned. Now you're talking my language. But I should warn you, you might not like what you learn about yourselves. What do you mean? I mean, Jaxer, that you might discover that the Kralith and humans have more in common than either of us realized. And that thought should scare you more than any plasma cannon ever could. As the first day of negotiations ended, neither species realized they were about to embark on a journey that would change the very nature of galactic warfare forever. The test of honor. The warrior's perspective. Jaxer the Mighty stood in the center of the training arena, his 4 arms crossed in a gesture that among the Kralith meant deep contemplation. 3 days had passed since his conversation with Colonel Kane, and the human's words still echoed in his mind. Now, watching the human demonstrate what he called basic combat training, Jaxer felt his understanding of warfare crumbling like ancient armor. The human moved wrong. Everything about his technique violated the fundamental principles of Kralith combat doctrine. He kept his guard too low, exposed vital areas unnecessarily, and worst of all, he smiled while fighting. The impossible display. Your stance is flawed, Jaxer announced, his translator converting his rumbling voice into standard galactic. You leave your torso completely vulnerable. Marcus Kane paused mid-strike against the training dummy, sweat beading on his forehead. Do I? Huh. He resumed his assault, landing a devastating combination that would have felled any Kralith warrior. Seems to work okay for me. But the efficiency is terrible, Jaxer protested. You waste energy on unnecessary movements, you telegraph your attacks, and you. He struggled to find words. You appear to be enjoying yourself. Marcus laughed, the sound somehow both musical and terrifying. That's because I am. Fighting should be fun, shouldn't it? The ancient code. Fun. The concept was so alien to Jaxer that his translator seemed to struggle with it. Among the Kralith, combat was sacred, ritualistic, governed by 10,000 years of tradition and honor codes. Warriors trained in silence, fought with grim determination, and died with stoic acceptance. Combat is not entertainment, Jaxer said carefully. It is the highest form of expression for a warrior. It requires discipline, focus, absolute dedication to perfection. Perfection? Marcus wiped his face with a towel. That sounds exhausting. What happens when perfect meets something that refuses to follow the rules? Before Jaxer could answer, Marcus threw the towel at him. The Kralith warrior's 4 arms moved in perfect synchronization, catching the cloth with fluid precision. Then Marcus was moving, having used the towel as a distraction to close the distance between them. The lesson in chaos. What followed was the most confusing 30 seconds of Jaxer's life. The human moved like liquid chaos, striking from impossible angles, using techniques that had no names in any martial art Jaxer knew. He fought dirty, using psychological warfare, feints that were more like theatrical performances, and at one point, he actually used Jaxer's own arm as a springboard to launch himself into a spinning kick. Jaxer, despite his superior strength, speed, and forearmed advantage, found himself completely outmaneuvered. When Marcus finally stepped back, both of them breathing hard, the Kralith warrior was staring at him with something approaching awe. How? Jaxer's voice was barely a whisper. The philosophy of adaptation. You want to know the secret? Marcus settled into a relaxed stance. Your people fight like you're trying to solve a math problem. Perfect technique, optimal efficiency, everything by the book. But combat isn't math, Jaxer. It's jazz. Jazz? Human music. Improvisation based on a theme. You know the rules, but you break them creatively, responding to your partner, making something new in the moment. Marcus grinned. Every fight is a conversation, and you've been trying to recite poetry. Jaxer's compound eyes studied the human with new intensity. This is why the simulations fail. We prepare for human tactics, but humans do not use tactics. Oh, we use tactics, Marcus corrected. We just make them up as we go along. The deeper truth. The training session continued for hours, with Marcus demonstrating techniques that seemed to violate the laws of physics and common sense. He showed Jaxer how humans fought wounded, how they turned disadvantages into advantages, how they used their environment as a weapon. But more than that, he showed him the human spirit in combat. The way humans laughed at danger, the way they protected each other even at personal cost, the way they found hope in hopeless situations. Your people, Jaxer said during a break, they fight like they believe they will win, even when victory is impossible. That's because we do believe it, Marcus replied. Hope isn't a strategy, Jaxer, but it's the fuel that makes every strategy possible. The question of honor. As the day wore on, other Kralith warriors gathered to watch. Their expressions ranged from confusion to horror to something that might have been admiration. The humans' unconventional approach was working against their most skilled fighters, and it challenged everything they thought they knew about combat. This hope you speak of, Jaxer said as they prepared for another round, it is what you call love for your comrades? Part of it, Marcus nodded. But it's more than that. It's love for the idea that tomorrow can be better than today. That the universe is worth fighting for, even when it seems determined to kill you. Jaxer raised all four arms in a traditional Kralith salute. Colonel Kane, I request permission to learn this, jazz combat. Permission granted, Marcus smiled. But I should warn you, once you start thinking like a human, you can never go back to just being a perfect warrior. The transformation begins. What will I become instead? Jaxer asked. Marcus's expression grew serious. Something new. Something that might just be capable of changing the galaxy. As the training session ended, Jaxer found himself staring at his reflection in the polished metal walls of the arena. The same four arms, the same natural armor, the same scarred face that had intimidated enemies across 17 star systems. But something in his eyes had changed. For the first time in his life, the perfect Kralith warrior was curious about imperfection. The ripple effect. News of the training session spread through the Kralith delegation like wildfire. Warriors who had never questioned their methods suddenly found themselves wondering if there might be another way. The humans weren't just skilled fighters, they were something the Kralith had never encountered before. They were teachers who fought with joy, warriors who found strength in vulnerability, and soldiers who turned every disadvantage into an opportunity. And in the depths of space, monitoring stations across the galaxy began to detect something unprecedented. Kralith training facilities were requesting human combat instructors. The two species born for war were about to discover that the greatest victory wasn't defeating each other, it was learning from each other. The shared battle. The distress signal. Lieutenant Nina Cross was having a perfectly normal day reviewing supply manifests when the emergency klaxons shattered the peace aboard the mining station Prometheus 7. Her coffee mug hit the deck as she sprang to her feet, muscle memory taking over as she reached for her tactical gear. All hands, battle stations. The announcement crackled through the comm system. Unknown vessels approaching. This is not a drill. Nina cursed under her breath as she sealed her combat armor. The mining station was supposed to be in neutral space, protected by the recent peace accords. But apparently, someone hadn't gotten the memo. The unexpected allies. Racing to the command center, Nina nearly collided with a massive figure in the corridor. She looked up to see Jaxer the Mighty, the Kralith warrior who had been participating in the joint training exercises. His four arms were already reaching for his weapons, and his compound eyes were scanning for threats. "Lieutenant Cross," he rumbled, "what is our tactical situation?" "Unknown," Nina replied, surprised by how natural it felt to coordinate with the alien warrior. "But if they're attacking a mining station, they're either desperate or stupid." "Or both," Jaxer added with what Nina was learning to recognize as Kralith humor. They reached the command center to find chaos. The station's minimal defenses were being overwhelmed by a coordinated attack from what appeared to be Vorthan raiders, a species that hadn't been seen in this sector for months. The impossible odds. "Tactical report," Nina demanded, sliding into her position at the defensive control console. 27 Vorthan fighters, 3 heavy cruisers, came the reply from the sensor operator. "They're demanding we surrender all refined minerals and our defensive codes." Nina's fingers flew across her console, analyzing the enemy formation. "Station complement? 43 human personnel, 12 Kralith observers, and 1 very angry mining foreman who wants to know why nobody told him about the shooting." Jaxer moved to stand beside her, his massive frame somehow comforting rather than intimidating. "Lieutenant, my people have protocols for such situations. We fight to the death and take as many enemies with us as possible." "Yeah, well, humans have a different protocol," Nina muttered, pulling up defensive schematics. "We cheat. The human way." "Cheat?" Jaxer's translator struggled with the concept. "Improvise. Adapt. Overcome through creative problem-solving." Nina's smile was sharp as a blade. "The Vorthans are expecting either a quick surrender or a glorious last stand. They're not expecting us to turn their own tactics against them." She began issuing orders that made no sense to traditional military doctrine. Instead of concentrating their firepower, she scattered the station's defensive drones in seemingly random patterns. Instead of reinforcing the main shields, she began rerouting power to the mining equipment. "This is madness," one of the Kralith observers muttered. "No," Jaxer said quietly, watching Nina work. "This is jazz. The moment of truth." The first wave of Vorthan fighters screamed toward the station, plasma cannons blazing. Nina waited until they were committed to their attack run, then triggered her trap. The mining station's asteroid processing equipment activated all at once, creating a debris field that the Vorthans flew directly into. Their precise formation scattered as they tried to avoid chunks of rock moving at significant fractions of light speed. "Now!" Nina shouted. The scattered defensive drones converged on the confused fighters, attacking from angles that should have been impossible. The Vorthans found themselves caught between the station's defenses and their own scattered formation. The Kralith revelation. Jaxer watched in amazement as the human turned what should have been a massacre into a winnable engagement. But more than that, he watched how she included the Kralith in her planning. "Jaxer, I need your people to take hand-to-hand combat positions at these coordinates," Nina said, highlighting sections of the station on her tactical display. "If they board us, we need to make them regret it." "Understood," Jaxer replied, but then he did something unprecedented for a Kralith warrior. He made a suggestion. "Lieutenant, what if we didn't wait for them to board us?" Nina looked up from her console. "What are you thinking? You humans fight like you're already dead. But what if we fought like we were already alive?" The collaborative strike. What followed was the first recorded instance of human Kralith tactical cooperation in active combat. Nina's chaotic, improvisational strategy combined with Jaxer's precise, overwhelming force in ways that neither species had considered possible. The Kralith warriors, inspired by their human counterparts' adaptability, began using unconventional tactics. They abandoned their traditional formations and started thinking like individuals within a team. Meanwhile, the humans found their creative chaos enhanced by the Kralitha's natural combat instincts. "Vorthan heavy cruiser moving to attack position," the sensor operator reported. "Let them come," Nina said, but her voice carried a confidence that surprised even her. "Jaxer, remember what Colonel Kane taught you about using your environment as a weapon?" The Kralith warrior's mandibles clicked in what Nina now recognized as eager anticipation. I remember. The turning point. The battle that followed became legendary in both human and Kralith military archives. The mining station, with its improvised defenses and unprecedented cooperation between two warrior species, not only survived the Vorthan attack but actually captured two of their heavy cruisers. But more importantly, it proved something that both species had suspected but never dared to believe: they were stronger together than apart. How? The Vorthan commander demanded when he was brought before Nina and Jaxer after his surrender. Our intelligence said humans were reckless and Kralith were predictable. This was neither. That's because we're not fighting as humans and Kralith anymore, Nina replied. We're fighting as something new. The new understanding. In the aftermath of the battle, as rescue ships arrived and the station was secured, Nina found herself standing beside Jaxer in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Your people, Jaxer said quietly, they fight for each other. But today, you fought for us too. Yeah, well, Nina shrugged, apparently you guys aren't as bad as everyone said. Plus, you're useful in a fight. Jaxer's compound eyes studied her. Is this what Colonel Kane meant by hope? Part of it, Nina nodded. Hope that we don't have to be enemies. Hope that maybe, just maybe, we can be something better than what we were before. The message sent. As the reports of the battle spread through both human and Kralith space, military commanders on both sides began to realize something profound. The two species that had been preparing for inevitable war had instead discovered something unprecedented: they were complementary forces. Human creativity and adaptability enhanced by Kralith precision and power. Kralith honor and strength tempered by human compassion and innovation. The galaxy's two greatest warrior species had found their match in each other, and the result wasn't mutual destruction, it was mutual elevation. And in the depths of space, other species began to take notice. The humans and Kralith weren't just allies now, they were something entirely new. Something that might just be capable of rewriting the very nature of galactic civilization. The question was, would the rest of the galaxy be ready for what they were becoming? The breaking point. The War Council. General Thane Blackwood stood before the largest holographic display he'd ever seen, watching as red and blue tactical markers danced across a three-dimensional map of the Andromeda sector. The war room aboard the dreadnought Indomitable buzzed with activity as officers from both human and Kralith forces worked side by side, their voices creating a symphony of strategic planning. 6 months had passed since the incident at Prometheus 7, and the galaxy had taken notice. The alliance between humanity and the Kralith had sparked something unprecedented. Other species were choosing sides, and the balance of power that had maintained peace for centuries was crumbling. Admiral Nix, the Kralith's supreme military commander, approached with his characteristic four-armed salute. The Vorthan Confederation has officially declared war on our alliance. They're calling us an unnatural threat to galactic order. Thane nodded grimly. Can't say I blame them. We've rewritten the rules of engagement in 6 months. What's our current force disposition? The impossible unity. 200 human vessels, 150 Kralith warships, and... Admiral Nix paused, his compound eyes reflecting something that might have been wonder. 17 different species have requested to join our alliance. The Zilani want to learn our combined tactics. The Quantum Collective is offering their shield technology. Thane whistled low. So we've gone from 2 species preparing for war to half the galaxy wanting to join our book club. Book club? Nix's translator struggled with the idiom. Human expression. It means we've accidentally started something much bigger than we intended. The display updated, showing massive fleet movements from 3 different directions. The Vorthan Confederation wasn't just declaring war, they were mobilizing everything they had. More concerning, they'd convinced the Zarathi Empire and the Dominion of Scales to join them. The moment of truth. Sir, a young human communications officer called out, we're receiving a transmission from the Vorthan Supreme Admiral. He's requesting a parley. Thane and Nyx exchanged glances. In the months they'd worked together, they'd developed an almost telepathic understanding of each other's thoughts. On screen, Thane ordered. The holographic display shimmered, revealing the scarred face of Supreme Admiral Kravex, the Vorthan who had built his reputation on crushing rebellions and maintaining the old galactic order. General Blackwood. Admiral Nyx. Kravex's voice carried the weight of absolute authority. I'll make this simple. Dissolve your alliance, return to your respective territories, and we'll pretend this aberration never happened. And if we refuse? Thane asked, though he already knew the answer. Then we'll demonstrate why the old ways exist. Some lines aren't meant to be crossed. The choice that changes everything. The transmission ended, leaving the war room in tense silence. Thane looked around at the mixed crew of humans and Kralith, at the tactical displays showing their combined forces, at the future they'd accidentally created. Well, he said finally, I suppose this is where we find out what we're really made of. Admiral Nyx stepped forward. General, my people have followed the old ways for 10,000 years. We've conquered, we've ruled, we've maintained order through strength. He paused, his four arms gesturing to the mixed crews around them. But in 6 months with your species, we've learned something we never knew we were missing. What's that? Purpose beyond conquest. Your people don't just fight to win, you fight to build something better than what came before. The speech that echoes. Thane activated the ship-wide communications system. His voice would carry to every vessel in the Alliance fleet, human and alien alike. All hands, this is General Blackwood. In approximately 6 hours, the largest military force in galactic history will arrive to destroy everything we've built together. They're not wrong to be afraid of us. We are dangerous, but not in the way they think. He paused, looking at the faces around him, human determination mixed with Kralith honor, alien species learning to fight alongside former enemies. We're dangerous because we've proven that the old ways aren't the only ways. We've shown that enemies can become allies, that strength isn't just about conquest, and that hope isn't just a human concept, it's a universal one. The strategy of the impossible. The next few hours were a masterclass in combined military doctrine. Human creativity merged with Kralith precision, enhanced by the unique capabilities of their new allies. The Zolani's stealth technology combined with human guerrilla tactics. The Quantum Collective's defensive systems merged with Kralith offensive capabilities. But more than tactics, it was about philosophy. The Alliance wasn't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for the right to exist as something new. Sir, the tactical officer reported, enemy fleet entering weapons range. They're enormous. Through the viewports, the combined forces of 3 galactic powers filled the star field. Thousands of vessels, representing the accumulated military might of civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. Status report, Thane ordered. All Alliance vessels report ready. The Kralith Honor Guard is requesting permission to lead the assault. Denied, Thane said, surprising everyone. This isn't about honor charges or glorious sacrifice. This is about proving that we're better together than any of us were apart. The battle for tomorrow. What followed was the largest space battle in recorded galactic history. The old powers brought overwhelming force and traditional tactics. The Alliance brought something they'd never faced before, perfect coordination between species that had been enemies just months before. Human ships danced through enemy formations with impossible agility. Kralith vessels struck with precision that defied their massive size. Zolani stealth ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts. The Quantum Collective's barriers turned enemy fire back on itself. But it wasn't just the technology or the tactics. It was the spirit behind them. Every ship in the Alliance fleet fought not just for themselves, but for the being next to them, regardless of species. Sir, the communications officer called out, were receiving surrender requests from Vorthan fleet elements. They're asking to join us. The moment of victory. As the battle turned in their favor, Thane realized they'd done something unprecedented. They hadn't just won a military victory, they'd won a philosophical one. They'd proven that cooperation was stronger than domination, that diversity was stronger than uniformity, that hope was stronger than fear. "Admiral Nix," he said, "I think we just changed the galaxy." The Kraloth commander nodded, his 4 arms crossed in satisfaction. "Indeed. But the question remains, what do we do with this victory?" Through the viewports, the debris of the old galactic order drifted in space. But beyond it, Alliance vessels were already moving to rescue survivors, to offer aid to former enemies, to build something new from the ashes of the old. "We do what humans and Kraloth do best," Thane replied. "We make sure nobody else has to face what we've faced alone." The new era begins. As reports of the victory spread through the galaxy, something unprecedented began to happen. Species that had been enemies for centuries began reaching out to the Alliance. Not to surrender, but to join. The 2 species born for war had discovered something more powerful than conquest, the ability to inspire others to be better than they were. And in the depths of space, monitoring stations across the galaxy began to detect something that would have been impossible just a year before: former enemies working together to explore the unknown regions beyond the galactic rim. The galaxy was about to discover that the greatest adventure wasn't conquering each other, it was conquering the unknown together.